Hey, this is Judah from SceneForge Studio, and in this video I'm going to go over the process of importing 3D models into your project. So there's a couple ways to do that, and let's go over the easiest way. So the first thing you can do is go to Import, this handy little import menu. You have two options, one for Material, which is covered in another video, Model, which we'll talk about in a second, and Sketchfab. Sketchfab is probably the easiest way to go about doing things, and my favorite just because of how convenient it is. So we can open this menu up. And you'll see here you have an option to log into your Sketchfab account. Now you do need a valid Sketchfab account to use this, but it is completely free to set up. So I'm going to log in. And once you're signed in, you are greeted with this Sketchfab menu here. So you can browse through the models that are on the home page, or you can search for something. So I'm going to search for a house, something basic. You have a bunch of different options here for, categories and filters you can use. But I'm going to click search as is. And I'm going to download this little forest house. So we can click on it. We can view it over here. Let's expand this. It's always important to keep an eye on the vertices and faces because it has the potential to slow down the SceneForge editor. Always make sure to take a look at the license. You can view it in your browser or just download the model. So I'm going to download this. It'll request it from the server. Then it'll open up the import menu. I'm going to go over these options in a minute, but as you can see, it's as simple as clicking import file. Now, if you go to static object, the model will appear in your library. So you can just bring it into your scene. It is that simple. And so here we have it. So that is the method for importing from Sketchfab. Really simple. Now let's talk about importing models from your computer, your regular file directory. So the way we do that is by going to Import, Model, and here it opens up your project's 3D models folder. Now, it is important to keep your project structure very organized, I suppose you could say. So in your project folder, we have a bunch of different options, a bunch of different folders for different types of content. You, of course, can import files from anywhere on your computer, but for ease of moving the project around, it's important to keep it inside the 3D models folder. Otherwise, it will still work, but if you move the file or the folder, the link will be broken and you'll get an error. So just for convenience sake, I recommend keeping it inside the 3D models folder. For this example, I have a model in my downloads folder that we're going to bring in. So it's just a simple cyborg character. So I can click on the file, then you're greeted with the same import menu as before. You have a bunch of different options about the file itself, the mesh, and the materials. If you're familiar with 3D modeling programs and terminology, you'll probably understand what all of this means. Otherwise, these default settings will pretty much work out of the box with almost any model you'll want to import, but if there are any issues, you of course can go back or re-import them with altered settings. So the most obvious ones are use original file scale or set a manual scale. You can optimize the mesh for GPU access. This is by default left on because more features in the future will make use of that. You can keep quads, merge the vertices that are close together, import the normals. Anything you don't import over here, normals and tangents, will be generated for you by SceneForge. Again, if you don't really know what these things mean, you're better off just leaving it as is. Some options for materials. If you're having trouble with transparent materials like windows or glass, you might want to change the alpha mode from transparent to cutout, texture compression, bitmaps, normal maps, etc. So I'm going to click import file with all of this just set to default. And depending on the poly count of the model, it might take a little bit. All right, so now that we are finished importing our model, you'll see we get an import success dialog. Click OK. Now that model is actually a rigged character, meaning it has a skeleton behind the mesh. So that will add itself to the rigged characters or rigged objects category. And that is this model right here. So we can bring her in, and of course it is a character. Now you'll see she's actually slightly animated in like an idle pose. And if we select her, you'll get these options for rigged characters. Now I'm going to talk about rigged characters in the next video and about how to pose them and everything like that. But you'll see the process is exactly the same, and you can just bring in your characters like so. So that is a really basic overview of importing 3D models into your scenes. It is super simple. Just download them from the internet, and they should work for the most part. Now, before I go, I want to talk about the file types that SceneForge will accept. So I'm going to click on Import Model again. I'm going to go to my Downloads folder, so you can take a look at all of these 3D models that I have queued up. Now, SceneForge will work with OBJ, FBX, and GLTF files, as you can see over here. OBJ, FBX, and GLTF. And these will work pretty much seamlessly, but it's important to keep your textures and any other maps that come with the model in the same place. That's why it's useful to have it inside the 3D models folder in your project. You'll also notice that it accepts zip files. Now, zip files at the moment only works with GLTF archives, meaning that anything you download from Sketchfab will just work as is. If you try to import a zipped FBX or OBJ, it probably just won't work. Sometimes it does, it depends on the model. For the most part, when downloading from Sketchfab, just keep it on GLTF and you are good. So you'll see I can just import another model. I tried to import a model that's already in the file structure, so it'll give you a warning. And so with that, that is basically everything you need to know with importing models. In the next video, I'm going to talk about rigged characters and how you can pose them and animate them. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.